Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and you are no longer yourself. Not because something was taken from you, but because something was added. You open your eyes. The hospital ceiling looks the same. The nurse's voice sounds familiar. But then you open your mouth and you speak in a language you have never studied, a language you have never even heard properly. Or maybe you pick up a pen and your hand begins to draw things you never learned to draw. Technically perfect, artistically breathtaking, and you have no idea where it came from. These are not movie scenes. These are documented medical cases. Real people, real doctors, real evidence that sits in neurology journals that most of us will never read. And every single one of them asks the same terrifying, beautiful question. What if the person you are right now is only a fraction of who you could be? Today, we are going to meet 4 of these people. We are going to walk inside their stories, inside their brains, and by the end of this video, I promise you, you will never look at yourself the same way again. Let's start in 1994, a small town in the Midwest United States. A 10-year-old boy named Orlando Serrell gets hit in the left side of his head by a baseball. He falls, he gets up, he shakes it off. His parents don't take him to a hospital. He seems fine. Life goes on, but something has changed. Starting from that day, that exact day, Orlando can tell you the day of the week for any date you give him. Any date. You say August 14th, 1987, he answers in seconds. Friday, you say March 2nd, 2031. He answers before you finish the sentence. Monday. He can also recall in perfect detail the weather on every single day of his life from the moment of that impact. Not just, it was sunny. He can tell you cloud cover, temperature, whether there was wind, every single day. For decades. Doctors call this acquired savant syndrome, when a brain injury or neurological event unlocks abilities that were simply not present before. Orlando didn't study or practice. He didn't even know it was happening until people around him noticed that he always knew the date. But Orlando's story, as extraordinary as it is only the beginning. In 2006, Derek Amato dived headfirst into the shallow end of a swimming pool at a party. The impact caused a severe concussion. He lost 35% of his hearing and 35% of his memory. 4 days later, visiting a friend's house, he sat down at a piano, something he had never played in his life, and his hands began to move on their own for 6 hours straight, playing complex, original music, arrangements he had never heard, melodies that made people in the room begin to cry. Derek has since released music albums. He has been studied by neuroscientists at the Mayo Clinic. When asked to describe what he sees when he plays, he says, "I see these little black and white blocks moving from left to right in my head, and I just follow them." He did not learn piano. The piano learned him. Derek's case stopped the neuroscience world in its tracks, because what he described, those moving blocks, that visual musical translation, suggested something profound, that the brain, under the right circumstances, can rewire itself not just to compensate for damage, but to exceed its previous limits. Now, I want to take you to England and introduce you to someone whose story is perhaps the strangest of all. Birch was a rugby player, loud, boisterous, engaged to a woman, working a regular job. He suffered a stroke while attempting a backflip on a hillside during training. At 26 years old, when he recovered, Chris was a different person. Not metaphorically. His entire personality had changed. He was quieter, more sensitive. He had no interest in rugby or his previous social life. He discovered he was gay, an identity he had felt no connection to before the stroke. He broke off his engagement. He trained as a hairdresser. He now has a long-term partner. Neurologists have documented cases of sexuality, personality, food preferences, accent, and even primary language changing post-stroke or post-injury. The brain is not fixed. It is architecture in flux. Chris's case exploded in the global media, not because of sensation, but because it forced people to ask a question they had never considered. How much of who you are is actually you? And how much is just the current configuration of 86 billion neurons that could, at any moment, be rearranged? But there is one more case I want to share with you, and this one doesn't involve injury at all. Kim Peek from Utah was born without the corpus callosum, the bundle of neural fibers that connects the left and right brain hemispheres. Doctors told his parents he would never walk, never learn, never function independently. They were advised to institutionalize him. Kim Peek memorized 12,000 books. He could read 2 pages at once, one with each eye, and retain both perfectly. He could recite postal codes for any US city, map highway routes between points, and recall TV schedules decades back. He inspired the character in the film Rain Man. Dustin Hoffman spent time with Kim before filming and called him the most extraordinary human he had ever encountered. What made Kim's case scientifically revolutionary was this. Without a corpus callosum, each hemisphere developed independently, at full power. His brain compensated for absence with abundance. 4 people, 4 impossible stories, all pointing to the human brain. To understand what is happening in these cases, you need to understand one fundamental thing about your brain that most people are never taught. Your brain is not a fixed machine like a hard drive running the same program forever. Your brain is living tissue that rewires itself constantly every single day. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize connections based on experience, injury, or need. When you learn a new skill, neurons fire together and create new pathways. When part of the brain is damaged, neighboring regions sometimes absorb the lost function. When you stop using a skill, those pathways weaken and are eventually pruned away. Your brain is literally a living, breathing construction site active until the day you die. Now, acquired savant syndrome sits at the most extreme edge of neuroplasticity. Leading researchers like Dr. Daryl Treffer propose dormant circuits exist inside every brain, waiting to be accessed. Think about what that means for a second. Studies at the University of Sydney using transcranial magnetic stimulation suggest inhibiting the left hemisphere can reveal savant-like abilities. When the left hemisphere is inhibited, some people display artistic precision, mathematical speed, and enhanced memory. In Derek Amato's case, a concussion did not give him something new, it removed the filter. The inhibition, keeping those neural circuits quiet, was disrupted, and what was underneath came flooding out. Dr. Alan Snyder calls this the Savant Switch, a theoretical threshold where underlying talent can be accessed. He ran studies where ordinary volunteers showed improvement in artistic ability and memory after temporary magnetic inhibition. The effects were temporary and the abilities faded when the inhibition was removed. The magnetic field did not create abilities, it revealed something already there. The left brain that handles language, logic, and narrative was preventing access to raw perceptual and computational ability. This is why many savants, including Kim Peek, have unusual or absent connections between hemispheres. Without the dominant left brain constantly narrating, the right brain can process information with extraordinary fidelity. This raises a question philosophers and scientists have debated for decades. Is the conscious, verbal, narrative self we think of as me actually a limitation? Is the thing you call your identity, the voice in your head, the thoughts you have about yourself and your capabilities, is it possible that this very voice is also a cage? I want to be careful here, because this is where conversations like this can go in 2 directions, towards something meaningful or towards something dangerously oversimplified. The meaningful direction is this. The science of savant syndrome is not telling us we can all become geniuses if we believe hard enough. That would be irresponsible and it would be wrong. Acquired savant syndrome is rare. It sometimes comes with devastating trade-offs, loss of memory, loss of function, loss of self, as Chris Birch experienced. These are not stories of simple upgrades, but what the science is telling us carefully, rigorously, persistently, is something quieter and more profound than the self-help narrative would have you believe. It is telling us that the human brain consistently exceeds its own predictions of itself. Every single one of these cases demolishes a belief that most of us carry quietly, like furniture we've stopped noticing. The belief that we know what we are capable of, that the abilities we have today are roughly the abilities we will always have, that we have been assessed by schools, by tests, by failures, by time, and the verdict is in. Kim Peek's doctors told his parents to institutionalize him. He memorized 12,000 books. Derek Amato was a salesman with no musical background. He now plays concert halls. Orlando Serrell was a 10-year-old who got hit by a baseball. He became a living calendar. None of them chose this. None of them trained for it. The capacity was simply there, waiting in the architecture of tissue and electricity that each of us carries inside our skulls. Now here's the part I keep coming back to. The part that I find genuinely unsettling in the best possible way. Dr. Treffer, after 5 decades of studying savants, wrote something that I think deserves to be read slowly. Within each of us, there may be a little Rain Man, dormant capabilities that our dominant cognitive style keeps quiet, capabilities that might surface under conditions we haven't yet fully understood. He wasn't writing poetry, He was writing a scientific hypothesis backed by the cases of over 300 savants he had personally studied and the magnetic stimulation experiments at Sydney. The implication is staggering. You have never met the full version of yourself. Not because you haven't worked hard enough, not because you haven't read the right books or taken the right courses, but because the human brain, by design, operates with suppression. It compresses reality, it filters perception, it simplifies the world into something manageable, and in doing so, it simplifies you. Every single thing you believe about your own limitations is a belief that exists inside the same brain that, under different circumstances, might paint like a master, calculate like a computer, or remember like a library. We don't know where those thresholds are, we don't know what conditions unlock them, and we certainly don't know how to reliably access them without the kind of catastrophic events these individuals endured. But the science is telling us unambiguously, uncomfortably, that the limits you feel are real, but they are not permanent. They are not fundamental. They are the product of one particular configuration of your brain on this particular day in this particular life, and somewhere in the soft tissue behind your eyes in 86 billion neurons in 100 trillion synaptic connections. Something is waiting. We just don't yet know its name. The 4 people in this video, Orlando, Derek, Chris, and Kim, are not superheroes. They are not anomalies to be put in a glass case and stared at. They are evidence. Evidence that the human brain is not a finished product, that every single one of us is carrying something we haven't accessed yet. I want to leave you with one final thought. In every case of acquired savant syndrome, the change happened in an instant, not gradually, not after years of preparation. In one moment, a single event, something shifted, and a person who went to sleep ordinary woke up extraordinary. We tend to think transformation happens slowly, that it is built brick by brick over years, but the brain tells a different story. Sometimes everything changes in a heartbeat, a concussion, a stroke, a moment where the normal rules simply stop applying. Maybe the lesson isn't to wait for a brain injury. Maybe the lesson is simpler than that. Maybe the lesson is to stop being so certain about who you are.